Forward-facing sonar is a polarizing topic in the fishing industry. Everyone has an opinion on it, but one thing is for sure, it's changed the landscape of bass fishing. There are new baits and tackle designed specifically for forward-facing sonar. In this video, I'm gonna walk you through my Jig Head Minnow setup. I'm gonna be covering everything from the baits to the terminal tackle to the rod and reel combo. Make sure to stay till the end because each of these components are very, very important. So there's a ton of baits on the market for the Jig Head Minnow setup. Almost every soft plastic bait company has one to choose from. So to help you guys kind of muddle through all the different options out there, I'm going to give you a couple that I've been using to catch fish on. I've been using the 6 Sense Fishing Juggling Minnow and the 6 Sense Fishing Clobber Minnow. The Juggling Minnow is a fluke style bait and the Clobber Minnow is actually a crappie bait, but both of them have been catching me some good bass. If you go over to the 6 Sense Fishing website, 6sensefishing.com, use discount code LUNA10, it'll save you 10% off anything on their website. They are fish catcher baits though, guys, so check them out. 6sensefishing.com, discount code's LUNA10. So we're going to go into a little bit of depth on both the Juggling Minnow and on the Clobber Minnow. First one we're going to talk about is the Juggling Minnow. The Juggling Minnow is a fluke style bait. It does not have a slit in the belly like a lot of your fluke style baits have. However, I don't think that that's an issue. There's plenty of hook that comes out of the top of this bait when you get it rigged up right. It does have a forked tail, which I like a lot. It's very subtle in the water and it is perfect for these Jig Head Minnow presentations. So even though this bait is 4 inches in length, it's not too big to imitate some of that smaller bait fish as well. You can always cut it down or just leave it as is. A lot of times I'm fishing around super small bait and this 4-inch Juggling Minnow is still getting bit. It's not an overly large bait. It's got 4 inches in length, but this tail's so thin that I think it can kind of mimic some of that smaller stuff and be subtle enough to get those finicky bass to bite. Now when it comes to color selection with the Juggling Minnow, I like to go with the Sexified Shad. I like the Ghost Minnow color. I really like those very natural presentations when you're doing this technique. Now they have some other awesome colors on the 6 Sense Fishing website. If you need one that mimics your bait fish a little bit more, maybe they're on bluegill, you want to get a green pumpkin color, maybe you're around perch, you need to get a closer color to that. But most of the time when I'm fishing this technique, so I'm fishing around bait balls, so I'm imitating the bait fish that we have here at home or whatever lake that I'm at, and trying to get them as close to the same color as that. And then depending upon how cloudy it is and how sunny it is, I'll alternate between these two different colors. Now there are times where this Juggling Minnow just might be too big for what you're trying to imitate, and that's where that Clobber Minnow comes into play. The 6 Sense Clobber Minnow is actually a crappie bait. This was initially designed to be a crappie bait. It's 2 inches in length, so you're gonna have to play around with what jig heads are actually gonna fit this. I have caught fish even on this little bait with a 2/0 hook inside of it. The 2/0 hook's a little bit on the big side for this bait, but it has done the job and I have caught fish. This little tail on the back still has a little bit of room to wiggle and move, and it has enticed those fish to bite. So a couple of my favorite colors when it comes to the Clobber Minnow is the Ghost Minnow color again, and then the Threadfin Shad color. Those are very ultra realistic colors. Again, if it's cloudy, I might be going with that Ghost Minnow color. If it's sunny, I'm probably gonna go with that little bit more translucent Threadfin Shad color. I feel like having those two at my disposal really covers my bases when it comes to the different conditions that I'm fishing. So aside from the actual bait itself, the terminal tackle that you use for this Jig Head Minnow presentation is very important as well. You want a 90-degree hook eye just like this one is. I sell these on Tackle Warehouse. Just head over to Tackle Warehouse, search for Matt Luna Fishing, you'll see these jig heads, and I'll leave a link down in the description. But this 90-degree head, or this 90-degree hook eye, is paramount for the Jig Head Minnow technique. If you have a hook eye that's not 90 degrees, you're not gonna get the right action out of your jigs. So the next thing you want to pay attention to is the weight of the jig head. The weight of the jig head is almost as important as anything else because rate of fall is super important. You don't want a bait going through the water column too fast in most situations, and you don't want something too slow that takes too long to get down to those fish. I've been finding myself going towards that 1/8 ounce the most. However, if there's a little bit of wind, if there's a little bit of current, if there's just the fish are really aggressive, you might need to go up in order to get that rate of fall to go down. A little bit of wind, you're gonna want that weight to come down a little bit faster because the wind starts affecting everything. You're gonna see bows in your line because of the wind. You just start noticing a lot of things when you're using that forward-facing sonar. You notice the bait coming up on the forward-facing sonar a little bit different when there's a wind because of the bow in your line. Instead of that bait coming towards you, a lot of times it'll come straight up in the air because you have that bow, so that bait's not coming towards you, it's actually coming straight up because that's where the line's actually pulling from. So as of right now, I offer these jig heads from 1/8 ounce all the way up to 3/8 ounce. I have a 16th ounce on the way as well with a 1/0 hook. These have a 2/0 hook. They fit that Juggling Minnow perfectly, and I'm liking that 1/16 with the 1/0. I think that that's going to pair up pretty well with this Clobber Minnow. It might be a little bit on the bigger side, but I think it's going to do a lot better than the 2/0. I just didn't want to have something with such a small hook that would only work for this little Clobber Minnow. I wanted something that was going to be able to work for a lot of people out there. So as we're talking about that 2/0 hook that I have in these baits that I'm showing you guys right now, these 2/0 hooks are perfect for a majority of your Jig Head Minnow presentations. There are times where you're throwing some of these smaller baits where you might want to go down to a smaller hook size, or you're trying to mimic larger bait where you're going to need to go up in hook size. So the next thing that you need to choose when it comes to the Jig Head Minnow with the terminal tackle and the jig head itself is whether you want to go with tungsten or if you want to go with lead. 6th Sense has some awesome lead options. It's their 6th Sense Finesse Swimbait head. Those heads are awesome. They have a nice light wire hook in there, very realistic head in them, and a lot of times lead's going to be a little bit cheaper than the tungsten is. Tungsten's just a little bit more expensive of a product. I tend to go with the tungsten because you can see that return better on your forward-facing sonar. Another great option is actually pouring them yourself. In the future, I'm going to be doing a video talking about the different dual molds that I have that are awesome for the Jig Head Minnow presentation, that they're going to make awesome jig heads to be able to use for all these different techniques. Now, the thing about making your own is you can put as small of a hook in there as you want, or as large of a hook as you want. You can make them as heavy as you want, as light as you want. You have all the different options at your disposal. You can make them to suit your specific needs, your specific conditions, and it's just something that you can tailor specifically to what you need that you can't always get from the tackle store because they're making things for the masses, where when you're making your own tackle, you're making it for yourself specifically. I'm going to leave my Dual Molds affiliate link down in the description of today's video as well. So if you guys want to check out the different ball head jig molds that Dual Molds has to offer, or some of their other molds that they have that are awesome for the Jig Head Minnow presentation, I'll leave my affiliate link down there. So that way, if you click on it and go to their website through that link, they'll know that I sent you. Now, the next topic that we're going to be talking about for the Jig Head Minnow presentation is your line. This is a finesse technique. So a lot of times you're going to be using light lines, spinning gear, stuff like that. And I think that that braid to fluorocarbon is paramount. I like to go with K9 braid. I use the 9-strand braid. It's a very smooth braid. It comes off the spool really, really well. I'll link that down in the description. I also have a discount code for K9 fishing line. It's Luna10. But then I really go with the Pro 100. It's their 100% fluorocarbon. In 8-pound generally, I have gone down to 6, and I think you can go up higher if you want as well. A couple things to take into account when it comes to the line is I think you want something as invisible as possible, which is why it's important to go with that fluorocarbon. Fluorocarbon is as invisible as it gets when it comes to fishing line. Now, if you need to slow your rate of fall, try to deaden the action out of your bait, you can go up higher in line size, but then that's starting to affect everything, and maybe those fish that are line shy aren't going to bite, and then other times you might need to go down to that 6-pound test as well. I have done that here at my home lake, and it did get me some better bites. I haven't played around with line choice too much in terms of line size to know 100% whether it makes a difference or not, because I've also heard of a lot of guys using some higher pound test line, up to 10, 12 pound test, depending on the conditions. I heard guys at Toledo were using some pretty heavy line as well. I have a feeling that helps keep that bait up higher in the water column when those fish are a little bit higher, because that heavier line isn't going to help that bait sink. When you have that smaller, thinner diameter line, it's going to help it cut through the water a little bit more. There's just less surface area for that line to have to go through. And guys, real quick, I want to talk about Waterland Fishing Optics. Waterland is my sunglasses sponsor. Been wearing Waterland sunglasses for a long time now, and they make a great polarized pair of sunglasses. They've also got great apparel on their website as well. Their website is waterlandco.com. Use discount code LUNA15. It saves you 15% off everything on their website. They have a bunch of different frame styles to choose from. A couple of my favorite are the Slaunch frames and the Hybro frames. Those are the ones that I'm wearing most of the time. I also like the Ashore frames out on the water, and when it's bed fishing season, the Bed Fisher frames are awesome as well, because they're going to cut as much light out as possible and help you really hone in on those fish that are on the beds. So head over to waterlandco.com and use discount code LUNA15. All right, guys, so the next thing I want to talk to you guys about is the rod choice that I've been going with for the Jig Head Minnow setup. I've been going with the 6th Sense Fishing Custom USA spinning rod. It's a 7-foot spinning rod. The line weight rating is 8 to 14 pound test, and the lure weight rating is 1/4 to 5/8. I still think you can go down to those 3/16. those 1/8 ounce, 16th ounce, and still cast these. The tip on it is awesome, super light tip. It's got a mod fast action, which some people don't like for this technique, but I've had great results throwing this rod for the Jig Head Minnow. It's sensitive, it's light, I can cast those little baits really, really far, and I've just been really happy with it. It's a really great drop shot rod as well, so it's not just a Jig Head Minnow rod, but I know a lot of guys are going with a rod specifically designed for the Jig Head Minnow. A lot of times they're like a 6.8 to a 6.9, fast action on those tips, but a light action as well. Just a fast tip, so it bends a lot in the tip and not a lot in the backbone of the rod. This rod does have that bend in the backbone a little bit, but I think that helps keep those fish pinned as you're fighting them back to the boat. Now, as always, we got to pair that rod with a reel. The reel that I've been using the most is the Daiwa Tatula LT. This is the older model. Now they have the MQLT, which I think is a great reel as well. I do have it. It's just not on this rod in particular. I think you could use the Tatula LT, the Tatula MQLT, the Shimano Vanford, the Daiwa Ballistic. You can use all those different spinning reels and have great results with this technique. I think you want to go with a higher end spinning reel because, again, it's a finesse technique. Sometimes you're catching big fish throwing this Jig Head Minnow, so you're going to want a reel that has a good drag system in it, one that casts really well, that's really smooth when you're working the bait, when you're reeling that bait back to the boat. You just want everything to work smoothly. I think this is one where you're going to want to spend a little bit of money and get a better quality reel. I'll link some of my favorite spinning reels down in the description of the video as well. Guys, don't forget to check out the description of today's video. It's going to have the links and the discount codes to all the different stuff that I talked about in today's video. And if you want to see me use this exact stuff out on the water to catch fish like I've been talking about, make sure to click on the video that's on the screen right now, and I'll see you guys in the next video. See ya.